Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website, click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner. It will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? That chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve my quality of life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we would appreciate you doing so by giving us a call, or on the app, if you download the Needle app, N-E-D-L, AI Tuner for Live Radio. Once you download that app, sign in, answer a couple questions. It gives you the option to either type a comment in the app or tap the phone icon, talk to us directly voice to voice. Other than that, you can send us an email. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. Or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment or a testimonial from you, we will address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your comments or feedback. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody lets us know how we can be of assistance. That is our primary intent here, is to be of assistance, and if you give us feedback, it makes it a lot easier to live into that intention. So today's Tuesday, which means there'll be a support group tonight from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central, and we're on daylight savings time here in the central part of the country, so we sprang forward Sunday. So 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. All the information you would need to join us is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. And please remember there's a separate login info page for Tuesday and a separate one for Thursday. And we'd be happy to have you join us and or pass that information along to somebody you think might benefit from joining us. It's absolutely free. All you need is an internet connection and the Zoom link. And all that information is available, as I just mentioned, on the website mindshiftersacademy.org. So, how can we support you today? What's on your mind? How have these things been resonating for you? I had somebody type a comment or send me a text yesterday saying they wanted to have a discussion about the judgment issue. And we have plenty of time for that. Yesterday we were reading from the book by Alan Cohen titled Of Course in Miracles. And the point he was trying to make is that very much the same point that we get made for us in the Way of Mastery, where it says, every time you judge, the very cellular structure of your body stops functioning properly. And judgment is not necessary for right action or discernment. Discernment can certainly be said to be necessary, but the judgment is the part where you decide you're right and the world is wrong, and you create an incredible amount of tension in your body, and in response, your perception becomes distorted. Course in Miracles has a line about that. It says, you must come to understand the distorting power of the way you want things to be. And it's critically important that we understand that wanting something literally changes our perception. The line from Guy Finley is, when you don't want something from someone, they can't lie to you. As long as you want something from someone, the process of your perception becomes distorted. And one of the best ways for you to understand that your process of perception is getting distorted is for you to pay very close attention to your internal level of comfort, tightness, or tension. And when you're calm, when you're coming from compassion, when you're coming from a centered place, chances are much better that your perception will be closer to the actuality of life in that moment. And whenever there's any kind of tightness or tension or any of the unpleasant emotions that we would say are the negative emotions, it's a really good bet in that moment that your perception is being distorted. One of the things I have in the bottom line observations is an observation that says, if I have a negative thought about myself or somebody else, or a negative emotion active in my system, I can instantly know three things. The first thing I can know is that whatever the thought is it's a lie or it's based on a falsehood. And the second thing I can know is this is an old tape playing in my mind. This is something from the past being brought up and thrown onto the present moment situation. This is not about the present moment. Course in Miracles tells us you're never upset for the reason you think you are. And the third thing we can instantly know is if I sit spinning thinking about this situation, if I speak or act from it, I'm just going to make my situation worse. I can't act from the negativity and improve my life situation. I used to say it's like throwing garbage on the buffet table right before dinner. It doesn't enhance the dining experience. So when you are in tightness or tension, you can know at some level you're judging in that moment. When you're judging, you've distorted your perception. You've decided that something about your life the way you're living it is better and more true than the flow of life itself. I am turning on the microphone for Susan Ving.
Hi, Dr. Tim.
How's the sound today?
It sounds fine. I have to jack up the volume a bit, but it's good. You sound clear. No background noise. Congratulations.
It's magic.
Yep. I listened early this morning to your Dr. Robert C. Smith, MD, interview and couldn't wait to tell my son about it. And he agreed with everything he said. I mean, he didn't, because I was summarizing. But I was also thinking in terms of there may be a place for my son back in the medical field dealing with just this lack, because he has a great interest in that. But that's beside the point. What I wanted to say is it's fantastic, wonderful interview. We really need it publicized way beyond Journey's Dream, and I was wondering if you have any ideas of how to spread it around, except to have each of us listen to it. And I mean, can I post it on Facebook just as a listen to this thing and give the link?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at the bottom, if you're doing it through the YouTube, which is a link that is available, as you're listening or watching it, there's a little arrow at the bottom. And if you click on it, it says, okay, you can send this. You can copy and paste the link. You can send it in a text or whatever, an email.
Yeah.
So what I normally do is just copy the link and then email people, or copy the link and then create a Facebook post and then paste it in there.
Good. Okay. So I don't need any permission. I'm just sending it around.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, that Dr. Smith is trying to create a grassroots movement like Ralph Nader did, and, the Silent Spring movement. And so it's wonderful if somebody with some clout decides to cross-promote it, yet the real value is going to come by the people just like you and your son and friends who are willing to listen to it and then go to his website and copy and paste the letter and add your story and then mail it off to your Congress people and your representatives and your senators. And
yeah, he did get right into the political side of it, which is necessary, because that's part of the problem. And my son said, good luck with getting that whole dimension of training into the program to train medical doctors. There's no time. And I thought, the way it is now, there isn't. They drive those young people crazy. They make them work way long hours, it's counterintuitive for sure. It's an invitation to go either mentally nuts or be totally exhausted in the training. And I know that's under some reform. Even when my son was training at Columbia Medical School, they were trying to cut back on the hours that the interns, for instance, or the residents were being required to show up at work and do procedures when they were much too tired to do them. And he said, so good luck adding this whole thing on. It's going to have to change something basic, maybe add 2 more years to training. Of course, that's a problem too for most people. But anyway, and I'm going to send it to 2 friends who have kids who are not well mentally, and they've just had a terrible time with the medical model, getting 10 or 15 minutes in with a doctor, getting a medication, trying that out, crashing and burning, going back for something else. It's wasteful and scary, among other things. So it's wonderful that you did that interview. When did you actually do it?
About 10 or 11 days ago.
So, yeah, you must have been very eager to get that one up.
Yeah, And you know, currently just delighted that you and people like you are going to be listening. And you know, as you were talking, I was thinking about the the author's note that I put on my dissertation, and it talks about how the this process of getting a doctorate and writing a dissertation and all of its classes and all has been the biggest single threat challenge to my being or staying the kind of person I've always worked on being. Right? Loving, respectful,
Right.
balanced, healthy, etc. And I'm not sure, I said in the author's note, I was trying to find it so I could read it, but I said something to the effect of, I'm not sure that I've survived this process in a way that's allowed me to maintain the kind of personality that I've always tried to have, but I can tell you that this process is the single biggest challenge to that, because it does exactly what you're talking about. It demands that we live in an absolutely overdriven, chaotic, abusive lifestyle while we're trying to teach other people how to live a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
It's absolutely redefining do as I say, not as I do.
Totally. And his connection, his emphasis on the connection between the physical and the mental, which you've been talking about a lot, and there's another whole tangent we could go off, but it's so true. They're not separate. And he said that's one of the biggest, if not the biggest error in the beginning of it all, to separate those two. He knows his history too. I've got to go back and listen to some of the things he said about how this came about, the history, different streams of thought, how they came about to result in this dysfunctional way of treating people is just worth listening to.
Well, and he's got an appendix that talks about the origins, even with the Catholic Church.
Oh yeah.
Deciding to say, okay, you can do autopsies, but first you have to sever the head and send it to us so we can do something. You can do an autopsy on the physical body, but not the head, because that's where the soul and the mind is. And so, this literal separation
of
amazing.
Head
from body that then wove its way into our experience and our training and our theory about how things work, and viewing the actual body as a machine rather than a living organism. The mechanistic view of all of this stuff is just amazing.
Tim?
And
the milk is here.
Uh-oh. If you thought you were muted, Susan, you're not. So, the milk is here for all of you who might be thirsty. So, there's an appendix in his book, which is titled, Has Medicine Lost Its Mind?
Right. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
I tried to mute myself and obviously didn't, because you got me yelling down to Tim Bingham about a milk delivery.
Right.
Sorry, Dr. Tim.
We're all thirsty. No.
Okay.
But he talks about in his appendix how in the 5th century BC, Hippocrates gave us the birth of scientific medicine and talked about the 4 humors. And then in the 20th century, scientific advances let medicine move past that. But then the church came in and said, you can start looking at bodies, but you can't look at the brain. We're going to literally take the head and do a ritual with it and bury it. And because that's where the soul is.
Yeah.
And then from the 3rd to the 15th century, those treatment ideas, I mean, this beautiful arrangement in the appendix lets you look at what were the big advances and where were the roadblocks to keeping the body and mind together, right? Or to be able to look at things holistically. And then he talks about how this whole process in medicine of science ignores the fact that they have a model for doing this work, which is this the biopsychosocial model, and they're not using it.
Mm.
So they're still, functioning as though we are just a material being in a physical world, and that there's, a complete separation from the mind and the physical illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, for as long as I've been aware of anything to do with medicine, it's been known that if you have a child who's got asthma, the doctors say, make sure you keep the kid out of stress. Don't push him too hard because you can trigger an asthma attack.
Right.
Wait, all right, what? Stress trigger an asthma attack? What are you talking about? I thought you said it was a physical problem and they need this medicine because the physical apparatus in the body isn't working properly.
Right.
Right? So whether it's ulcers or it's asthma attacks or it's panic attacks that mimic heart attacks, they've known for decades that these two are not separate.
Mm-hmm.
This thing that we call the mind-body separation is false. So for anybody who's interested, this is to be found at onyourmindpodcast.org or journeysdream.org/podcast. And we would appreciate any help we can get in spreading the word, because I sent it to one of my friends from high school that I've maintained contact with all these years, and she said, okay, I'll give it a listen. Is he selling something? and I just wrote a one-word response, no. So many people are so gun-shy, and I literally got another, I occasionally get things from people I went to high school and or college with, and they're trying to sell me something, or they're trying to make me aware of the latest and greatest in new medical advances, or so this is just an awareness raising exercise. And if we get enough awareness and we get enough people who are willing to go to a website and copy and paste some things and type a little note into their representatives or their elected officials and our the head of our government and the head of our health and human services, this kind of thing can and has worked. It can work. It has worked. Will this work? I don't know, but it's worth an effort. And this is more than just complaining about it. This is an actual how-to. Take some steps.
Right.
If you agree that this is a problem that has a remedy, and that there are people out here working on the remedy, if we can get our government to leverage it a little bit, change can happen. So, there you have it. Thank you for listening and sharing it with your son and bringing it up on the show.
Welcome. I've been using it. I told you about a malfunction in my right leg, and you thought, well, this is not necessarily just a physical thing. There may be. It hadn't occurred to me that maybe there's some work to be done outside of, I want my leg to feel better, and I'm mad, and I'm upset, I'm mad, and enlightened goal could come from that. So I have been, it's an ongoing process, and I only got about 2 inches into the wake-up sheet, and it went in about 14 different directions. So there's not much to report yet, but
So your physical discomfort went in different directions, or the worksheet did?
The worksheet and this is a traveling problem. I'll have knee pain. I'll have pain in my shin. I'll have pain in groin, pain in my right rear end where it's all on the right side, but it seems to migrate. Sometimes it seems better, and I say I'm almost back to able to walk without being lopsided in my gait, and then there'll be something else. So I don't know what is going on, but along with that, there's an awful lot of material showing up in my mind. The mind shifter meeting I had with Kim in it, and you mentioned some of her work, and I know I'm not supposed to say names, but I was very much affected by her explaining about her father and how she's communicating with him now that he's no longer alive and he's probably in the clear and open and free enough to communicate back to her. I haven't wanted to do that with my mother. I've wanted to keep her away. And I thought, well, if she can do it, I can do it. But the resistance is phenomenal. The fighting against it is just blows my mind how many ways I am avoiding doing it. I've gotten through with this, that, and the other, but I tend to forget that I'm doing it. And I love that Michael calls a thing like my leg thing a healing crisis, because that gives it a positive spin and it creates an invitation to be open to something that I haven't been before. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is the tools are useful, and I swear to God, if you had reversed that interview and told Dr. Smith what you do, I mean, maybe he knows, he would be so excited about that.
Well, I want to, if we can, bring it back to you. The last time we talked about this, when you were trying to explore potential emotional issues that might be giving rise to the tension that's experienced as pain or discomfort in your hip, the thing that you came up with immediately was that your son and his wife are going to be moving away.
I know, and I've been thinking about that too. It's true, but it went further than that. It went into mother issues again, which is getting tired. I mean, on the radio show, there's been enough of that. But basically, it's abandonment issues that came up way before my son moving away. My mother running away for 3 weeks while we were small, and Daddy being in a frantic state, and the house in chaos, and we didn't know where she was or if she was alive or okay. And then she showed up and nobody mentioned it. No, it was just as if it never happened. My mother I came home from school and there she was in the kitchen. That was, oh good, she's back. End of story. No processing, nothing. So that's been very useful too.
That's a powerful story for any child to go through. And I'd be willing to bet, were there 3 children in your house at the time?
There were 5 of us.
Okay. So I would be willing to bet there are 5 different responses to that.
Right.
And
there are.
And they can be very different, or they can be similar in some ways and different in others, but that's just a real powerful thing to have happen, even if there's the awareness and presence of mind for the adults around to work with it and explore it. It's still a very powerful event, especially if there's been no talk about it.
No talk. All Daddy said was, let's all stay calm. Let's just not react. Let's all stay calm. and let's go about our business. And the older kids, I was one of the younger ones, and so somehow the older ones took charge and got us to school, and we were pretty independent anyway as kids. Everything chugged along. We obviously had food. I don't remember anything about a meal. All I remember is standing at night before bed in the front hall, looking out the window to where I would see my mother come back. If she was going to come back, we'd see her from the end of the road that I could see out that window. So I would just stand there and look. And that's all I remember of that whole thing. No discussion, nothing, except my dad saying, stay calm. I don't even remember that. My older sister reminded me. I talked to her, and she remembered the whole thing, said, yeah, it was very scary, very creepy, because there was no communication, no little, phone call saying, I'm not coming back, I'm okay, but I'm not telling you where I am. My mom just ran off. And the story is so crazy because her reason for running off is because something fell out of the freezer onto Daddy's foot. She used to overpack the freezer, and he opened it, and something fell out, hit his foot, and he got mad at her, and she ran away. But that's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, clearly.
Or the
Yeah,
ice cube.
that's not the reason.
Right.
That was the excuse. And one of my favorite lines is, an excuse doesn't have to be valid in order for me to use it.
Right. This is
So
definitely, yep.
that's the excuse, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
the stated reason, but it has nothing to do with the actual dynamics.
Right.
So, as you continue to explore, I think that what I hear you saying is that as you talked about your son and daughter-in-law potentially moving away, it stirred up in you thoughts about the abandonment that you had when you were younger.
I guess. I mean, I sure don't like the idea of them moving away, but it is a done deal now. She has accepted a job, and they're going to pack up and move as soon as they can do that. And it'll be probably late spring before they actually leave this area. And there are so many, there's just a lot of juggling because I have a sister who's disabled living near me, and we have the refugees living with us, and things will pan out, but it's a time of big shifts going on.
Yeah, and so, from the perspective of this work, one would say, okay, if we're coaching you to work on that, it would be okay. So you do the worksheets on your son and daughter-in-law moving away, and then you do the worksheets on whatever bubbles up, like this memory of your mom leaving when you were young, and you just bounce back and forth, being willing to look at whatever's there, because the willingness to look at it is the only thing that I've ever discovered that helps me transform something that's less than love into that loving, calm, compassionate position where I can see things more clearly.
Right. Willingness is the key word. And you said there's a name for Satan, the resistor.
One who misleads, yeah. That's
one
Dr.
who
Michael
misleads.
Ryce's
Yeah.
favorite definition for Satan is the resistor, one who misleads.
Uh-huh. Well, that's been very good to remember, too, because I literally forget to do this work. And night, I wake up in the middle of the night, and that's a great time to haul in the demons and have a look at them. And so I remind myself, and I have conversations with my mother while I'm in the bed, and she talks a lot. She's telling me things that some part of me probably knew, but I didn't know I knew. Anyway, it's been great. I guess I'm just saying this to see how Dr. Smith's work and your work and the work I'm doing and everybody's doing who listens to the radio show is so connected.
Julia says in the comments on the app that she has all the same symptoms. It sounds like bone-on-bone osteoarthritis. And my response to that would be, I don't believe bone-on-bone osteoarthritis of the hip travels around to knees and elbows.
I know, that's true. She sounds as if she's an expert, though, and I would love to hear everything she has to say about that, too. But, yeah, there is some. But I've had an x-ray, and the doctor says, gosh, you're never going to need a hip replacement. You're in good shape. So he says the basic materials are looking, for my age anyway, looking good, which is very encouraging. That means, like, this is a fluid thing. This can be fixed or at least helped.
Yeah, and I have a history with my caseload and the people I've done EFT tapping with when I used to teach the all-day class of, just story after story of people gaining relief from physical discomfort and stiffness and restriction of motion just by doing the mental emotional work.
Yeah.
Just by being willing to look at it directly while initiating a level of comfort and calm that is not possible when I'm triggered, right?
Yeah.
When my anxiety, my anger, when my negative emotional states around thoughts like I've been abandoned or I might be abandoned again, when those get resonated in me, then I'm not able to see clearly without the distortions in my perception, and so everything looks different, and it's likely not to resolve well as long as I stay in that level of upset.
Yeah.
But if I'm willing to turn and look at that level of upset and breathe and soften and train my body to stay in this calm, relaxed space while I do that, all kinds of things can shift. Some would say healing can happen. Some would say, you transmute the energy. I mean, there's different ways to talk about it, but the bottom line for people is then the symptoms abate.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing, as Michael Ryce always says, all of the above, including, thank you, D. Hangy. I know who you are, Dawn, I think. He said, find a good chiropractor. Well, I have. And I'm also leaving in a couple of minutes, but I can listen but can't talk for a physical therapy session. So I want to find out about this and fix it, to be sure.
Well, if you're going at all the above, you increase your chances of resolution.
Mm.
And if you just do one side of it, like if you just do the mental, emotional, and don't take a look at the physical, then you're missing a big portion of it. And if you just do the physical and don't take a look at the mental, emotional, then chances are you're going to hamstring yourself.
Good choice of words. That is one muscle that has not been involved, so no thanks.
All right.
So I'm going to have to go, Dr. Tim, but I'll be listening, but I'm going to hang up.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much for the call and the questions, the comments.
Welcome.
So Julia asked something about the comment. I was just making the comment that Susan has talked about the pain she has moving, shifting, going to a knee and elbow, etc. And that's not what happens with osteoarthritis for something that's bone on bone. So we have another person with their hand up. I'm turning on the microphone for Celinda. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfectly. I was just going to text you comment and ask if I could join conversation with you and Susan when she said she had to leave. This is amazing. The similarities between her stories and my stories are amazing. And it's also, I think, very interesting that almost all of my illnesses or difficulties are reflected in my left side of my body, and hers are reflected in her right side. So I think that's very interesting, too. I had a comment about the medical profession and what they do to their interns and in their training and just in the medical school and everything, just overworking the students. Larry and I had a conversation the other day about dehumanizing people, and he was commenting on something we neither one of us remember what it was, but I happened to make the comment, that's just like the military, isn't it? Because he's told me many stories about his service in the military, especially with boot camp and where he was stationed in 29 Palms, and what all transpired there. And it seems to me that the medical profession also has a vested interest in dehumanizing the situation, separating, cutting off the head of their residents and their interns so that they don't make the connection between body and mind. And that's just one of the ways that we manage control. It's a power person dynamic. And I see it in myself, and I see it in our institutions and in our family relationships. So I just wanted to share that.
All right. Yeah, it's an issue that is one of the many reasons that I talk to people about how unhealthy our culture is at many levels, and literally in a lot of ways primitive. And if you don't have a way to wrap your mind around that, just think about wars. Just think about people taking gunpowder and shells and blasting other human beings' bodies. And it doesn't get a whole lot more primitive than that. And
how about salting the earth like was done in the Old Testament in a wartime? The tribe that wanted to win, or the nation, would go salt the earth of the tribe they were defeating and killing all the soil so they couldn't eat.
Yeah, it's a very unhealthy culture. And so one of the things that I find so rewarding about the kind of work that I do and the kind of books that I read, the kinds of questions I raise, is that it helps me uncover those little hidden distortions that are blocking the capital T truth, right? If I'm walking around thinking that I know what's right and what's wrong and how people should live their lives, and I'm walking around with blinders on. And the teachings, whether they're philosophical or scientific or sociological, that have resonated the most with me over the years are the ones that work with, let's find a way to deal head on with the way things actually are, and let's, generally speaking, work at making the whole situation better. That can't happen when I'm busy pointing fingers and judging and distorting my own perception through the judgment and through the tightness and tension in my body. And when I try to assume that I know more than I actually know. And this is why, the Way of Mastery has these exercises. It says, come on, just tune into how little you actually know. Just pay attention to what the great minds over the centuries have known, that the more they learn, the biggest thing they come to realize is how little they know. And so how do you grow beyond that? You keep your eyes and ears open, and you learn to question everything, especially everything that you think.
I'm to the point now where I'm telling people, I know I come across really strong, as if this is the truth. Would you kindly tell me? And be gentle, please. I cry easy. But would you kindly tell me when you perceive that I'm preaching at you, or that I'm telling you you're wrong and I'm right? And I think that's being helpful, even in my personal relationship with Larry. And we're both a couple of really resistant souls and very strong-willed. And so I'm just watching us kind of melt along those lines. I also wanted to share with you a couple of incidents that show me how incredibly entrenched our person dynamic is. I was washing my clothes in our host's washing machine, and she has this huge Samsung washing machine that she was given, which is difficult for her too, that when you lean down into it, if you're small, like I am, you can't really get to the bottom without compressing your chest area to try to reach to the bottom. And this particular lid has two parts to it, some screened-like lid, I think, to eliminate large particles or something, and it snaps into the outer lid, and a lot of times it won't snap securely, and I'm trying to get down to the bottom to put my clothes in, and I'm putting my clothes in, and this lid slams down on my head, and the rage was so instant. As I slammed the lid back up, I thought, oh my God, that's the power person dynamic. That's it strikes when I least expect it. So I was trying to craft a worksheet around that. And then this morning, I've been focusing, when I remember, just like Susan, to calm down and just meditate on my breath and let the breath come any way it wants to come. And I noticed that all of a sudden my body was just raging hot, and that's the feeling I get every time I feel shameful. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting also. And I was shameful because it took me back to that little playing doctor incident when I was 3 and lying to my mother. And I was just a shameful, nasty, filthy little lying girl. And I thought, whoa, this is really something. And then the third thing that happened was very amazing, because I was open in some way or another. My tremor in my left arm just strikes whenever I don't know, and usually around eating or holding a teacup. And last night we were eating, and all of a sudden I noticed I had a slight tremor in my hand, and then I noticed that Larry was looking at me. And and my tremor just went wild, and I suddenly realized that arm,
That arm what?
infinitely linked, tremor is intimately linked with someone looking at me, and specifically the fear of judgment and punishment. I'm trying to wrap something around, worksheets around those issues. In fact, I even shared it to Larry, which I would have never done before, but it just was so blatant and so clear that I said, I understand you weren't judging me, you were just looking, or
Well, all right, so before we run out of time, let me just point you in the direction of, rather than worksheets, the mind shifters.
Okay.
that you can craft around. It's safe and healing for me, and I love it when people, watch every move I make, or when people stare at me, or whatever. You can shift those words just a little bit until you feel the vibration tapping into the negative emotions in you.
So whenever I feel the shame of my own self-judgment, sort of like that, it's safe.
Well, no, no, because now you're getting into the thoughts around what might be causing it, and
Oh,
all you've identified clearly is that there's a strong connection between somebody staring at you and the tremor.
okay.
And so you don't want to use your mind to say, oh, I know what this is about. This is about the shame, dot, dot, dot. Because the shame as an emotion is only going to get generated if you pour enough of your mind energy into a particular thought pattern that generates that shame. So the worksheet is just there to start doing some excavation in that part of your mind that you don't often look at, and stirring up what you call the unconscious by resonating it with statements around being looked at connected to the tremor, or around safety, and then you just see what comes up. It's safe and healing for me, and I love it when people stare at me. With or without a tremor, if putting the tremor in there makes a difference, but all you're looking for is the words that will stir up a strong emotional response in you, and then you put them on the paper and start journaling about it, inviting whatever wants to answer it back, whatever wants to argue against it, to spill out on the paper.
Good. Now, how could I apply a mind shifter to the washing machine, and also in reference to the um, meditation and then feeling that shame? Is there any way I can do that with them?
It was difficult hearing that because of the sound quality of your phone. How can you apply a mind shifter to, I heard, the washing machine situation?
Yeah, and the other one where I was meditating on my breath and this shame came up. Incredible hot flashes I get when I'm feeling shame.
Well, for that particular one where you're meditating and you feel the shame, you might say, okay, I'm going to do a worksheet and put shame as the emotion, and then figure out what's the thought you're using in that meditative process to
Okay.
generate the shame.
That's what I was thinking, a worksheet for that one then. Okay.
And for the the washing machine situation, again, I would probably use a worksheet, because you've got a situation in which all of a sudden you start feeling rage. And so you can say, I, Celinda, who I'm love, am feeling the rage, and here's what was happening with the washing machine. And the thought might simply be, this damn thing is hurting me. But you might have other thoughts that you can put on the worksheet and then process through it. But when you've got a discrete situation like that and clearly identified emotion, I'd probably go with the worksheet. When you're guessing at an underlying dynamic or connection, then the mind shifter tool helps me explore that by stirring stuff up and letting it bubble out on the worksheet or on my journaling sheet.
And it was a very clear perception or gut feeling that, oh my God, my mom's power person is still in me, active and alive. It's sort of like when Susan gets so discouraged because how many blankety blank worksheets do I need to do? And I haven't finished yet. That's kind of the sensation I had. But yeah.
Well, those are gifts. When we get that clarity of awareness that we're playing out a power person dynamic, it's a gift, because now if we understand what the power person dynamics are about, we can use tools to start dismantling the energy that we have wrapped around that dynamic.
And the other power person I have is my father, and those are the abandonment issues. Because he literally, as I've mentioned before, did not have the social power or legal power to take me away from my mother, and he wasn't going to do that anyway because my mother was his emotional mother. And so the dynamics just go down from generation to generation. He was the good little boy, and he had no power, and he always obeyed everybody else, including his society, to his death, health detriment. And it's just, there it is, between the power person of the bully and the power person of the victim. I got it in spades, so I've been working on both of them.
All right. Well, I wish you good luck and success with that, and look forward to hearing updates as you feel compelled to give them. I'm going to end the call now so I can wrap up the show. Thank you again for the call. And I'll remind us all that we have a support group tonight, 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. You can find out about it on mindshiftersacademy.org website. I'll remind us all that Michael and Jeannie should be starting a second hour soon after we end this one. And I'll remind us that we come from love. We're made of the stuff that we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Blessings.